So welcome everyone to our July 2020 membership meeting. This is the first of two meetings that we're holding today, but they're both the same. So in case you for some reason registered for both, don't worry, you only have to attend one. If you haven't already, please introduce yourself in the chat box. Just tell us where you're based, where you currently work or what you do. And you can also change your name in your Zoom profile so we know how to call you and your preferred pronouns. So my name is Nicole. I am part of SGP's startup team. I'm the parliamentarian as well. And I'm a gender consultant based in Mexico City. And in a few minutes, I'll introduce the rest of the startup team, those who are here and those who are not. So the SGP membership meeting is a semi-annual event for the administration, which is now the startup team, but will turn into the secretariat, as we'll explain in a little bit. And the idea is to report on organizational updates and decisions for members to consider. We intend to build an organization that is for the membership and by the membership, so these meetings are an important part of that process. We have designated some time later on for a facilitated discussion after we have done the reporting out. So please be ready to unmute yourself or put your comments in the chat box and participate with us. We really want to hear from you. So we expect the meeting to run for about 90 minutes, but we do understand that some of you may need to log on earlier, and that's okay. So as I mentioned, we have two meetings scheduled for today to try to accommodate more time zones. We are recording the meeting for our own records, and we'll be able to share that with the members who could not attend. We are also taking notes that we will consolidate and send out to those who registered. So before we officially start, we ask you that you please keep your mics muted unless you are speaking to minimize any background noise, but you can use the chat box at any time to ask questions or just give us your comments, and we will address any questions by the end of the meeting. So let's get started. This is our agenda for today. We will briefly introduce you to the startup team, the committee co-chairs, and the advisory council. We will follow with a brief financial report to give you an idea of the resources we have available as an organization. Then we will do a brief overview of what we've been working on over the first half of the year. And a big part of that work has been to update our bylaws and our governance structure, and we are excited to update you on what that process is going like, and to hear your thoughts about it, because we need to make some final decisions. We will then spend about 30 to 40 minutes on our member discussion, where we will discuss governance and leadership issues, but also we want to hear about your priorities, we want to hear about your expectations, your experience with SGP, and your thoughts on how we can continue to build this organization to better serve our members. We'll close with a look ahead on our plans for the rest of the year and on ways that you can get involved if you want to do so. And then at the very end, we'll have some more time for questions and answers. But like I said, you can just type your questions in the chat box at any time. So let me quickly introduce you now to our startup team. You can see here all of the startup team, and like I explained before, this is an opportunity for the startup team to report out to the membership. For those of you who may not be familiar with us yet, the startup team is a group of members who have been meeting regularly since SGP's inception to build the infrastructure and the basis for the organization, including the bylaws, the website, communications, branding, financial systems, facilitating all of our members' activities, including meetings like today. And all of this is done in a volunteer capacity up until today. So currently, the members of the team, as you can see, starting from left to right, from the top row, we have Christy, who's here today, and she splits her time between the US and Vietnam. And there's me, and I'm in Mexico City, like I said. Corinne, who's also in the US. Inma, who's our newest member, and she is from Spain and currently working in the US. She's also here today. Leah, who just moved back from Uganda to the US. Syra, who is based in Toronto. Christina in Washington, DC. Hayat, who is in Amman. Kenneth, who's in the US. And Kelly, who works in Saudi Arabia, and I think is back to the US like today, literally. But that's it. This is the team, and you may see our faces around. You may already know some of us, but you'll see our names, our faces popping up here and there. So now, next slide, please. Let me very briefly introduce you to committees before you can hear from one of our co-leaders. So a standing committee is a formal group of people that have been nominated and elected to perform specific functions and activities on behalf of the larger group, so on behalf of all of SGP. So according to how we have written the bylaws, each committee has 2 co-leaders elected in alternating years so that there is some time to transition in and out from the position and to pass on all the knowledge. Together with the startup team, the committees determine the priorities and the work plan for the year, and the co-leaders themselves are determine what the priorities will be for the year and how many members need to be in each committee and their activities. So there are currently 3 committees operating, those 3 that are in the circles that you can see. And the co-leaders are those below. So only one of our circle committees, unfortunately, only has 1 co-leader at the moment for some sad reasons, but by the end of this year, we will have a whole new election so that each committee has 2 co-leaders. I want to quickly introduce you to Christina, who is the co-leader of the events committee, so she can tell you a little bit about what the committee is working on.
Hi everyone, I'm Christina. So I'm the co-chair of the Events and Professional Development Committee with Amelia, and we sort of kicked off the committee a few months ago, and we have some members. Ellie, who's on the call, is one of our members, and we're in the process of establishing the infrastructure so that throughout the year, and then when we pass on the committee to the next group of leaders, we'll have a better process of going through everything. As I'm sure you've guessed, the nature of events and professional development have changed a lot in this year. So definitely not doing what we expected to be doing. Nonetheless, we do have a lot planned. So currently we're working on compiling virtual events and professional development opportunities for SGP members. And we're going to have sort of like a database of past recordings to events, which will be a great resource for people to go back to even once this is all over and maybe we start going to in-person events. We're also going to provide some support for the gender cafes and try to do some outreach to get more people from diverse backgrounds to attend these cafes and hopefully increase the number of members from that. And then finally, Ellie, who I mentioned earlier, she is spearheading a co-learning mentorship program for students, young professionals, and people who are new to the field. And so we're just sort of working out the details of this, but we would really be interested to hear what you guys think about it. So I'm going to put our emails in the chat, so if you have any ideas, we would really appreciate it and love to hear from you guys. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christina. Yes, please do put your emails in the chat box and we will make sure to add that as well to the summary that we send later to those members who couldn't join the meeting today. Well, that's one of our committees. The other 2 are also working on other things, including an analysis of the diversity of SGP's membership and a position paper on SGP's vision for diversity and inclusion. We will keep you updated as the committees progress in our monthly newsletter as well as these membership meetings. Next slide, please. We are very excited to have finally in place the start of an advisory council, which will eventually be comprised of between 10 and 16 members representing a global constituency of policymakers, academics, researchers, activists, funders, practitioners, and business people committed to gender equality and to raising the profile and impact of gender expertise. The Advisory Council will help ensure that the activities and the long-term strategies of the society are in line with the purposes of the society. We have 4 amazing folks ready to start this work, and the onboarding process is starting as we speak. One of these people is here today, so welcome, Elizabeth, again. We're so happy to have you here. And here you can read a little bit about each of these 4 members, but we will do a broader introduction later on. We will send you more information, and we are happy to answer any questions that you may have about how the advisory council works and what they'll be doing. Now I would like to pass this on to Hayat so she can tell you a little bit more about our finances.
Thanks, Nicole, and hi again, everyone. So just to give you very brief information about our financial situation. For the last 6 months, member dues have been nearly our only source of revenue. From month to month, almost all of our expenses are for our basic operations, so paying for the costs associated with the website, the CRM, the accounting software, and etc. However, in the last 6 months, we dedicated a relatively significant amount to provide access to 2 academic journals for our members. And the decision was made mainly on a poll done with members back in 2019. And we look forward to hearing your thoughts about how to prioritize spendings moving forward. As you can see here in the slides, we began the year with over 3,800. And because of the significant expenses of paying for the journals, we ended the second quarter with almost 2,600. It's important to note that after membership push in July, we are close to recovering and bringing our account balance to the level it was at the start of the year. Next slide, please. Here you can see the portion of our overall expenses and the portion that was allocated to the access of the journals, which is relatively almost half or more than it's a good amount of the expenses. Next slide. Looking ahead, we do expect incremental increase in our operational expenses as we need to pay for expanded access to certain platforms, mirroring the growth of the organization, etc. For the programmatic spending priorities, there are a number of decisions that we can go, and we would love to hear your inputs today. In the past, we have talked about adding additional journals to the list of resources available to members, but as you saw, journal access is quite expensive. We have also wanted to provide funds to support activities with thematic and regional circles or committees, set up some kind of fund to support professional development opportunities for members, like, for example, subsidizing conference attendance or providing honoraria to gender cafe panelists, etc. So these are some of the suggestions we'd like to hear your thoughts about. In light of recent events and our own efforts to mainstream anti-racism work in SGPs, also this is increasingly an important topic that we're giving an important focus on. I would love to hear your feedback, reactions, and additional ideas where we should focus among all different areas, or if you have any additional area to add. We'll continue to bring in revenue through member dues, but also we'd like to start fundraising and development task force to identify other ways to raise funds and support the work of SGP in the future. This is relatively more about the financial report, and now I would like to move it to back to Nicole, right?
Before heading that, just a quick note, we actually have a short poll to share out on what you feel that SGP's financial priorities should be. So I'm going to share a poll.
Thanks, Leah.
Yeah, thank you, Hayat. So don't mind the small typo that we have, but we wanted to ask you, what are your 3 priorities for SGP spending after operating costs? So please pick up to 3 that you feel most align either with SGP's priorities or what you feel SGP should prioritize. We've listed here academic journals, support for our circles, which are the thematic, geographic, and language-based group communities of practice. We also have noticed that for our gender cafes, this is time and labor that goes into preparing and for speakers to get ready. So we're considering providing honoraria for gender cafe speakers, particularly from the Global South, conference travel grants, financial support for under-resourced organizations, like Hyatt said, so thinking about some sort of emergency fund or working with Black, Indigenous, people of color, and queer-led organizations to support their efforts, as well as other social action project grants. If you have other ideas, feel free to select other and then just type in the chat what other ideas you might have. And it looks like we have just one person who has not voted, so I'll give about 10 more seconds. It's okay if you don't want to. Okay, I'm gonna close it now. Oh, great, 100%. So we can share the results right now. It looks like there's interest in social action project grants. So this is kind of more creative, you know, we can brainstorm different things that you might have ideas for and we can work together on that. And it seems like financial support for under-resourced organizations is also a big priority. So we're gonna take the results of this poll as well as the one from our later meeting and think about how we should move forward with the results of these polls. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Leah. So now let us go back to the membership report. Thanks to the hard work and the creativity of members, we have had a very active start to 2020, even considering everything that's happened. So let me, well, here on this screen, you can see our subscribers, and we have two primary types of engagement with SGP. Unpaid subscribers to our updates who signed up on our old website and or are signed up to receive our newsletter or just updates from social media channels. And people like all of you present today who have become registered or paid members since the launch of our new site last year. As we continue to expand the organization, we would really like to know what drove you to sign up as a member and the value, if any, that you've gotten from being a member. And we will have a broader discussion around that later on during our discussion section. So please start thinking about that. So this slide shows everyone who has signed up to receive information from SGP, paid and unpaid, through the different options. Next slide. And you can see, well, you are in the other side, that 132 of you have created a profile on the website. So when you created this profile, you list your skills, and here are the most mentioned. Gender analysis is by far the most reported skill amongst you. So you can use a membership database if you or your organization is looking, for example, to bring in a new person to your team. You can just use the database to filter by skill to what you're looking for, or by focus area, which as you can see in the next slide, these are the thematic areas that you have listed in your profiles as your areas of expertise. So this is just one of the ways that you can use the membership database. And I'll hand it on now over to Leah so she can talk to you about some of the work that we've done this year.
Thanks, Nicole. So we've broken down some of the highlights of our programming this year based on what our overarching goals are as SGP. So the bolded sentences are our main goals as an organization. So the first one is to promote the development of intersectional gender expertise for professional practice. So we have held 5 gender cafes this year. We have the Rethinking Binarisms, which explored thinking beyond different binaries and how we approach that personally as well as in our workplaces. We had one on self-care. We did one with the Coalition of Feminists for Social Change on adapting GBV programming under COVID. So we've had a wide variety of cafes, and anyone is welcome to submit a proposal for future gender cafes if you would like to explore another topic. We have a new podcast episode up on, I believe, women, peace, and security, if I'm not mistaken, which can be accessed through our website. We've also, building off of Hyatt's earlier point, we released a statement for the movement for Black Lives, but we really want to make sure that there are actions behind those words. So we've convened a task force for racial justice, which is housed under the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And if you would like to participate, you can email me and I can put my email address in. Our next goal is to promote member collaboration, network building, mentoring, and leadership. We have been building on a grant that we got from last year from Northumbria University in the UK. And we submitted a follow-up grant to support Circle membership in Cambodia and Myanmar. Unfortunately, we weren't funded, but we're still pursuing other options to deepen our Circle's work in Southeast Asia. We also have the Sexual Harassment Circle monthly newsletter that provides a roundup of global news and resources regarding sexual harassment. And we've also expanded our startup team, and now we're up to 10 people. We've had a lot of shifts, but we're continuing to gather more diverse viewpoints and make sure that, we represent our membership. And we also have expanded our presence on social media through SGP amplifiers, who have offered to translate some of our, since our social media is primarily in English, we have folks who have signed up to translate in Portuguese, French, Arabic, Spanish, just so that we can reach a more diverse group and acknowledge that the world is not just English speaking. So our next highlight is fostering the production and dissemination of applied gender research. As you've heard, we have 2 journals available now for SGP members. We also continue to have the monthly newsletter, which is another roundup of different activities, events, jobs, etc. Another goal is to provide a platform for the exchange of gender-related knowledge and resources. So Kenneth is our tech guru, and he has done amazing work on our website. And we have made our jobs listing page active as of last week, so you can go there to find job listings, as well as our resource page is active. And as Nicole mentioned, you can also use this to interact and connect with other gender professionals using the database. Our last goal is to advance gender equality in member communities through coordinated feminist action. So we currently have 3 active circles, and they are, I believe, the sexual harassment one, and I'm at a loss, ending sexual and gender-based violence, and Spanish-speaking circle as well, but we're open to, and a couple of others are in the works around Southeast Asia as well. We've also increased our social media presence and information sharing, and have really tried to diversify the content so that it isn't just Global North focused. And we've also been engaging on the Global Women's Strike as well, supporting the folks at the Asia Pacific Women's Law Center. I forget the whole acronym, but yeah, so we've been doing a lot.
Thanks, Leah. I'm going to take over and talk a little bit about our bylaws, just to give a little update on what they are, why we need them, and to encourage your participation. Next slide, please. So we have been working to improve the structure of the organization and building institutions so that the organization will be viable in the long term. This includes developing our bylaws. This is a process that includes all members, and it's really important for us to have a very clear sense of how the society is structured and how it can continue to develop. So we're also working on an operations manual that includes policies and procedures for how committees and the Secretariat will function moving forward. Together, this allows for smooth leadership transition and long-term sustainability of the society. So I'm going to walk you a little bit through how the structure, the organization itself is structured, and how these different moving parts fit together, and then we'll talk about next steps. Next slide. So for those of you who've been around since our founding about 3 years ago, you'll know that the organization is constantly sort of in flux as we put feminist theory into practice and test it and figure out what's working and what doesn't work in terms of founding an organization. So we have been trying to visualize this structure, and we visualize SGP as really a learning community, a global learning community. So we developed a visual that looks a little bit less hierarchical than many other organizations that we've all worked in. You'll see the Secretariat in the green circle. This is basically the startup team now. Once we approve the new bylaws through member vote, the startup team will transition into a formal Secretariat role and then kickstart the process of replacing ourselves over time. So we hope to have elections every year, and a few members will step out while new people come in so that we can maintain the organization. The Secretariat itself is made up of 10 elected members, including 3 co-presidents, a treasurer, secretary, and parliamentarian, who together serve as the fiduciary board of the organization. In addition, there are 4 Secretariat at Large members who are also elected, and their responsibilities include sharing the leadership work and maintaining daily functioning of the organization and keeping us on task with meeting member priorities. The Advisory Council supports the work of the organization overall and provides long-term strategic vision and support in growing our membership as well as our finances. Beyond the Secretariat and Advisory Council, we've already introduced the really important functioning of committees, who are also elected as co-chairs of committees, that they serve to support the day-to-day work of some of our priority goals. Circles then, which we've introduced a little bit about, are places where members can connect and coordinate for advocacy, professional development. They can generate new knowledge in their respective fields, and of course, network with each other. It's possible that members become a part of 2 or 3 circles, as well as serve on a committee, and that overall, as people move throughout their careers, there might be different spaces within the organization that they would like to participate. This year, we also started 2 task forces. One is working on fundraising strategies and the other on racial justice, as Leah mentioned. As a society, you can see there's a lot of moving parts, but also a lot of places to get involved. We're really excited by the number of members serving in all these capacities. Next slide. So the bylaws describe the organization structure in more detail, in addition to the different positions, committees, and rights and responsibilities of all members. They also describe the election structure and how decisions are to be made. As a US registered nonprofit organization, we're required to have bylaws, and they should be reviewed regularly. We're excited to be working with all of you, our members, to make sure that they actually reflect our vision and mission as an organization, but that they're also clear and understandable to people coming in and out of leadership positions. In addition, we're then working on policies and procedures that will explain the more day-to-day operations. Next slide. So as many of you know, we've had an open process for the past few weeks where our bylaws are up on the website for members to review, and there's a comment section in there. We can share the link again in the chat box. We welcome more comments today during discussion breakout, as well as over the next week. We will be revising the bylaws to clarify spaces that need clarifying, and then sending the bylaws out for a vote. Our parliamentarian, Nicole, will manage that process, and we hope to have new functioning bylaws in place by end of August at the latest. Next slide. I'm now going to turn it back to Leah for our breakout discussions.
Great. I feel like because we have 14 people here, we can split into 2 breakout rooms. So if you haven't attended a breakout room before on Zoom, you're going to receive this little notice on your computer that says the host is inviting you to join either breakout room 1 or 2, and you're going to click to join the breakout room. After about 30 to 40 minutes, breakout rooms will return to the main room. So this is really a chance for you all to share rather than us just continuing to talk at you. And so we have a couple of questions. We'll have different representatives from the startup team in each group to help facilitate. And so for this meeting, we want to first hear general feedback on your experience with SGP overall, and we have some guiding questions for that. And then one group will be focusing on financial priorities and digging more into what that means and what our priorities should be and ideas for possibly raising more money. And then we also want to hear feedback on bylaws and our leadership structure, especially regarding transparency and accountability as a leadership team, and any tensions that you might see in the current leadership structure. And this can also include how we diversify the group of people that you are currently seeing right now. So yes, the facilitators will be directing you with these questions, so you don't need to write these down or anything. But we might share them. I think Christy might share them. Christy, do you have the breakout room set up? Or am I doing that?
I do. I have the breakout rooms set up. So there will be about 6 people per room. I'll stay back here in the main room. So if anybody gets lost or gets kicked out, I will be happy to get you back into your right room. You'll get a notice of about 10 minutes before the end, and then 5 minutes, and then you'll be automatically brought back. We have 2 facilitators in each room, and just to let you know in advance, we will be recording the rooms. If everyone's comfortable with that, you can let your facilitator know, but we would like to be able to keep a record and make sure that everyone's interests and needs are recorded later. We will not be sharing these recordings.
Or linking anyone's names to comments made. Everything will be anonymous.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to open the rooms. All you have to do is select the option to go to the room when you see it on your screen. And Leah, I've not assigned you to a room because you're hosting in this room.
Okay, great. Well, I will pass it to Syra to just wrap us up a little bit and looking ahead at the rest of the year.
And I'm conscious of time, so I'm not going to go through all the stuff that you can read. You can see that we're, in the second quarter members meeting right now, and next year we're hoping to launch a new magazine and maybe an awards. There's all sorts of ideas. That there's a mentorship program that we want to look at and grow the advisory council, and there's a zillion ways to get involved. So we need more people to get involved. And in typical SGP fashion, the amplifiers meeting that I have been planning to hold for the past couple of months is now itself amplifying and morphing a little bit. And, I really hope that some of the folks here can come, and we'll find different ways of accommodating different time zones for sure. That's going to be August 1st in the first instance, and there's always more opportunities to get involved in different ways. So that won't be all, and I will start promoting that online and over email and stuff, so that we hopefully get a good, diverse group of fantastic feminists on board.
Thanks, Sarah. That's great. And I would say also the most urgent priority, if you do anything, is to look at the bylaws that we shared the link to, because we would just love to get folks to look them over and give us their reactions. And your reaction could just be like, this doesn't make sense to me. And that's really important for us to know, because we really want them to be clear and make sense, right? So it could be the most basic thing, or you could get really in the weeds on co-leadership and sharing of responsibilities and all of those things. And we welcome all of it.
As we have, it's been a problem.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I know that you gave instructions in the original email about how to provide feedback on the bylaws, but for some reason, I don't have that information. Can we just send it to the info@ email?
Yes, you can definitely email us always. But then if actually that link that Leah just shared in the chat, if you click on it, you'll see that the bylaws are there on different tabs. I think you have to log into your account first. But then once you do, but actually at the bottom of that page, there is a comment section. So if you are comfortable leaving public comments, you can comment there, and then other members can build off of your comments, or we can comment back, etc. But if you just want to send an email, that's great too.
Okay.
Oh, I also have one request. If we have any fluent francophones, there's somebody who would like to join the August 1st meeting who says, oh, but I not only speak French, but she's communicating with me in English. She doesn't think her English is that strong. Perhaps if there's somebody who's francophone and comfortable who could just sort of help her out in the chat or something, that might make it a more inclusive space. So I'm just throwing that out in case we find any French speaker who can come on board.
When's the meeting?
So that's August 1st at 10 a.m. will be the first, and then 10 a.m., sorry, New York, our time zone. And
for the amplifiers, right?
Yeah, so that's the volunteer, I mean, it's membership communications volunteering.
Okay.
Essentially. And I've lost my train of thought.
Okay.
No worries. Well, we'll wrap up here, but maybe Adriana and Syra, you guys can follow up after on that. As you can see here, and we'll send around these slides to everyone, but there's so many different ways to get involved. But we really thank you for coming today and sharing your thoughts with us. This was a lovely and energizing conversation. So there's a lot. If you want to get involved in the podcast, you can reach out to Sue, comms to Syra, the Racial Justice Task Force to Leah, who's leading that charge. There's a lot going on. And that brings us to the end.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
It was wonderful to see you.
Thank you, you too.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.